position exactly the opposite. It's one of the rich things of Europe that we are diverse, and because of that come to a number of solutions that are equivalent in the result, in the achievement of the protection objective, but offer different paths to reach this goal.
Final opportunity for the audience to get the microphone and participate on the same harsh condition that I said this morning.
Speaking about the potentials of internationalization of nuclear waste management, I have a specific question to Edward Sprouts. One of the last things that the Bush administration did was to launch this global nuclear energy partnership. And for many things, and referring to colleagues of mine, American colleagues of mine, although they would be critical to that kind of partnership because it was kind of pointing out a nuclear expansion in the future, and also that the statement opened up for reprocessing for the first time since 1977. They were very optimistic, since they said that the American nuclear industry and also the regulators, they say, had been isolated from the discussion all over the world. They hadn't participated in kind of global discussions around nuclear energy or nuclear waste management. So they saw something optimistic in this global nuclear energy partnership. Do you think that that kind of ideas, and also we should remember that the US made this agreement with India for fuel, for nuclear fuel in India. Do you think that the ideas in this partnership idea, would it make a difference? Would we find a United States that is more active in the future decades to come in international processes, that the US could take a more active and maybe a leading role? Because that, I would guess, would make a huge difference in to the degree it would be actual regulations.
There's the answer.
The GNET program that you were referring to really has seen from inside the U.S. I can't comment on how it was seen from outside, from the international community, but I can say from how it was seen in the U.S. had two distinct components: an international component and a domestic component. The domestic component was primarily on closing the nuclear fuel cycle in the U.S., moving forward with fast reactors, coming up with an advanced reprocessing process that didn't necessarily separate out the plutonium. There was not much support for that in Congress, and I believe in the proposed budget for fiscal year 2010 that component has been zeroed out. Not absolutely sure of that, but that's what I've heard. There was not a lot of political support for that. However, on the international side, I think you may be aware of the Secretary, there were at least 2, maybe 3 secretarial level meetings held by GNEP. Secretary Bodman went to, I know, at least 2 of those internationally. Every time those secretarials were held, the number of participants got larger. I think that was viewed very favorably, both internationally and domestically. I don't know what the current administration's perspective is on the maintenance of that international component. So unfortunately, I can't give you a good answer to that. But I do know that the international component of GNEP was viewed much more favorably within the U.S. than the domestic component.
2 more questions, second last, and Jakob, last question.
Thanks. I hope you allow me to give a complimentary answer to a question you put about who decides on how safe is safe. It's clear that Björn said that this is based on a very thorough discussion among experts. And in the case of Sweden, I believe that the release target for the final repository, as for any nuclear activity, corresponds to a maximum annual dose to any member of the public at about, what's it, 10-15 microsieverts. By the way, that's about 1/10 of the dose you receive when you do a return flight to Thailand. But this safety target which is written into the regulations of the regulatory authority, has first been approved by the board of the then Radiation Protection Institute, which includes outside experts from the health authority and a few members of parliament. And in the end, the government will also have to endorse that when they made their final decision on a license, which is in Finland it's the same, it's a decision in principle. In Sweden it's a permission and a justification decision. So the political level is involved. Thank you.
Thank you. Björn, short
Just
comment.
comment,
Yes.
I think this is a very tricky question. I mean, what is safe enough? You can always go further with research and so on. So how do you determine this? In Sweden, I think in many other countries, you do have two types of criteria. You have, one is this threshold we were talking about. In Sweden, we have risk criteria. And it corresponds to about 1/10 of the background radiation in Sweden. And so on one hand, you need to demonstrate that the repository meets this criteria, and those are risk criteria. On the other hand, you have requirement also to take into account principles of best available technique and optimization. And simplified terms, these principles mean that you should do as good as you can. You shouldn't take any shortcuts. So, I mean, how far should you go? So, this will be a task, in fact, for the implementer, for the SKB in Sweden, to actually demonstrate and to convince us that they've taken the good path and done as much as possible. Then it's up to the reviewer to, in the first step, to determine whether we think this is credible. And then, eventually, if there are difficult sort of trade-offs between safety and other things, societal, economic factors, then they will be lifted all the way up to the government. It will be part of the decision basis for the government.
Thank you. Jakob.
So I would like to underline what Ms. Engström told us about earlier on about the local opinion, public opinion. We do need to know whether there is a yes or a no to the application that is coming up. 2 years ago, the two municipalities, Oskarshamn and Östhammar, wrote a letter to the government requesting adequate resources for this big review that Mr. Dverstorp spoke about earlier on. We had at that time, and still has some fears about if there is enough and adequate resources from the government in order to really review this oncoming application. I would like to ask both persons, Ms. Engström and Mr. Dverstorp, is there enough of public financing and support and resources for this oncoming very complicated process and review, so that we are sure that whether it is a yes or a no to whatever application there is, which is oncoming, it is something that is scientifically 100% relevant and not, it doesn't take too long time.
Yeah.
What can I say? I'm convinced that we'll get the resources needed, and if not, you'll hear about it.
Well, actually, our president, on repeated occasions in meetings with the Department of Environment, from the Ministry of Environment, and also to the director, the general director of SSM, has pointed the need of having resources for the review from the regulator point of view, and have been assured from both the Department of the Environmental Ministry and also from the General Director of SSM that the resources will be there when needed. So we have, just as Björn stated, we have to take that for a yes, the resources will be there, and we certainly do hope so.
As far as panel, the answer is yes. I sometimes put a final question to panels saying if we meet here again in 3, 4, 5 years' time, what we will be saying. But in this business, 5 years, it's nothing. So rephrase the question. Bruce, if we meet here again in 100 years' time, Her Majesty the Queen Elizabeth will be still around, might be around. Your national anthem is "The Candles Are Coming," and you never know. But what will you be saying?
We'll still be asking what the Scots have managed to do.
That's your final question.
Try to relaunch the 60th relaunch of the Goal 11 project.
Goal 11.6.0, okay.
I don't know, I think I'll be looking down from some heaven somewhere and see my grandchildren actually closing the facility I have been working very hard to select and push an application for.
With a certain pride.
Yes.
Well, I'm probably dead, so I don't know what to say. Anyway,
The
for the sake of my kids, I hope we have a safe solution for that.
The assumption is that we are still alive and around. In 100 years' time, we meet here.
Yeah.
What will you be telling me?
There.
What will you be telling me about France?
I hope that people will say that finally the local elected people were right to get involved. And the fact is that I experienced the same situation for how existing disposal in Lobe. And finally, I appreciate that the local elected people, the local mayors, sometimes feel proud to have made the first steps at the beginning of such stories, and to say that I was there to be volunteer, and everybody is happy now. But at the beginning of the story, it was not so easy. So
China, 100 years from now?
Well, I will have two sentences. One sentence is that I hope in 100 years, the sky is still as much blue as today, and the water is just as clean as today. And also, everybody your children, your grandchildren is just as healthy as today. So, this is my first hope. The second hope is that I hope the waste, the spent fuel buried 500 meters deep, will not be digged out again and you play with it to recover uranium and plutonium and something else and copper. Thank you.
You have a shot at this perspective as well.
We'll have a repository in operation, we'll probably be recycling at the same time.
And the zip code to this repository, what is that? What is the address of it? Where is it located? You're trying to avoid the issue.
I suspect it will be in Nevada.
Okay. Please remain seated, and Klaus, I don't envy you who have to summarize this complex and interesting day, but go ahead.
Well, I don't think I'll even attempt to summarize. I'll start by saying, personally, I had a great day. It was, like bringing together people that I've been working with in Sweden for many years, and during many meetings out there in the municipalities and in different meetings nationally, and all my colleagues from other countries having the same type of work that I have. And to bring these people together during a day like this is just a very great pleasure. And I hope also you in the audience could have something like that. I think we got a very good picture of the variety over the globe on this matter. There are certainly some common features, and what I could highlight, I think there was, as I can see, consensus on that the end point, I think that was the phrase used for spent fuel and high-level waste in all countries, is deep geological repositories. That's what everybody's planning for. There are differences in time schedules. There are differences in how far people have come in decision-making processes and so on. that there is a common feature that we need deep geological repositories for what will rest when imagination cannot see something more with the waste. So that's very encouraging in a way. We are coming to the same principal solutions in this work. Then I just want to pick a few items from all these discussions. When we had the local decision makers, of course I couldn't avoid to note that both the municipalities seem to stay rather happy whatever choice we make. It makes it a little bit easier for us to be strictly on the line which we have said we will be on letting safety criteria be deciding factors for the choice of a repository. My second reflection is maybe we were too generous in the negotiations. But anyway, the principle for that package is that it will be beneficial for all parties, including the industry. So I think it was a good agreement also. Of course, I think there's been overall a rather positive picture given today. I think maybe I can remind us all that, of course, there are a lot of challenges coming ahead. Not only in the countries who have to restart or have many question marks, also in a country like Sweden, Finland, and others. One thing was said by Wood Sprout: decision makers will be changing in a frequency of definitely more often than, at least in the Swedish case, people involved in the national program, because as Hans said and myself, we've been here for maybe too many years, but decision makers have changed and they will change. It not necessarily will mean a completely different picture, but of course it will mean a certain uncertainty, and it will certainly mean we have to keep on with communication and consultation. So that's very important. Actually, I'm happy to hear what Björn Westhoff said. Safety will always go first. I think that's what we feel, and I think that's important even more, of course, for a safety review organization. We touched a little bit about the complication for the authorities, of course, and that is, when is enough enough? At some point, we all will have to face that question. There will always be a possibility, in theory at least, to do some more years of research, to ask for more, and to delay this decision. But there is also a danger by that. So somewhere, not only the implementer, we are already there, we are saying now, enough is enough at this moment to give a license application. Of course, we are not naive enough to think that we will have zero questions from the safety authority. But we are mature enough to give that application in a year from now. And later, the same difficult issue will be on the table of the safety authorities. When is enough enough to say to the government that we believe we can go on, which is the hope I have that answer will come sooner or later. And hopefully with all the resources that will be needed to make a good review of that license application. So with those very few words, I want to thank everybody in the audience who participated in this conference, and of course I want to thank all my colleagues from the different countries. It's been a pleasure to have you here. I'm very glad that we could gather so many of you to come to this particular occasion, and we'll certainly meet again and exchange our experiences. And I want to thank all the people in the team who behind the scene prepared this meeting in different ways. And I also want to thank Saida, who together with me made all the planning to get the right people to the meeting and to get the format that we thought would be beneficial for the discussions and the dialogue. And finally, where are you? There is There is, and I would say there is a surprise. It's actually exactly what Hans was given.